Jordan Mason, restricted free agent. They tendered him a second-round tender. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be on the team next year, though. What do you think's going to happen with Jordan Mason?
Well, this is shouts out to Tom Jensen. We actually talked about this topic on my show yesterday. And he brought this to my attention is that in order for you to trade a restricted free agent, you have to tender him first, right? And one thing that I kind of got schooled on yesterday, and I had to actually, stand corrected, is that Kyle really hasn't shown that he's all in on Jordan. He didn't play him for 3 weeks at all when Christian came back, where he could have ingratiated him more. We already know that there was a huge campaign to get him playing field, period, before all of the injuries happened, and that seemed to not really work. And then we heard murmurs coming out of the locker room is that Kyle definitely freaks out about ball security. Jordan Mason fumbles and that he's not necessarily a plus in the blocking and pass blocking. And that's Kyle kind of looks at his skill set and says, maybe we can move on from him. If that happens, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think that we're going to draft a running back in this year's draft. I don't think Kyle's in on Jordan Mason. I think he wants to trade him. And with the pick, he wants to probably pick up one of the guys that they actually had a meeting with was Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, 6'1", 225-pound, one-cut running back. So there's guys. There's also Basul Tootin out of Virginia Tech, a little bit of a scat back, one-cut outside zone guy, 5'9", 211, actually ran a 4.3 in the combine that we just saw. And then there's also our boy out of SMU, who I believe is kind of like a little bit of a Debo clone, and Bashard Smith, 5'9", 195. He's a one-cut receiving back, caught a lot of balls out of the backfield for SMU and can actually give us that little bit of wide back field that we're losing out of Debo. So I just think that, old habits die hard, and Kyle's going to find a way to get another one of his guys, which is a running back. I think he's moving on from Jordan Mason.
I think it's a mistake. Maybe they will, but if I were going to trade a running back on this team, I would trade McCaffrey. McCaffrey is going to be 29 in a couple of months, and he has, in his career, 1,871 touches in his career. Okay. Jordan Mason is 25. He's going to be 26 in May, and he has 250 touches in his career. And he's a quarter of the price. To me, it's a no-brainer. To me, it's a no-brainer. But you're right. Kyle's never really been that enthusiastic about Jordan Mason for whatever reason. Maybe it's the ball security. I don't know. Maybe he's just too freaking powerful. Maybe he runs too hard. Maybe that's it.
I don't know. I really do believe that Jordan Mason is a back where, how can I say, you ever sing with your dad and let's say your dad is a loud singer, right? And you do a duet with him and it's like, I kind of gotta let him take the lead. I'll sing bass, right? You take soprano, you take the melody. And I think that's what Jordan Mason is. He's a back where you gotta kind of facilitate him. You can't dictate to him. He's somebody that once he gets into his own flow of the game, you can't be worried about fitting him into your best laid plans with offense and scripts. You got to ride the train. I mean, if he's hot, you got to give him the ball. I think that that's incredibly uncomfortable for Kyle. He doesn't like players where he has to capitulate to their skill set rather than dictate to it. So I think that Jordan Mason is one of those guys where he doesn't know how to play Kyle's way. That's the way it would be categorized.
To me, he's such a perfect timeshare back. I wouldn't necessarily want him to be my featured back because he's not enough of a receiver. But in a system like Detroit where you have David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs and they split time, I think Jordan Mason would be so good in that David Montgomery role. So freaking good in that David Montgomery role, 12, 13 carries, and they're punishing. He should go to Washington and do that.
Grant, I want him to go somewhere good. Yeah. I'm tired of it, Grant. We've seen it. This guy has gaslit us into thinking that real football isn't real football for 9 years. We know when screens are supposed to be ran. We see when guys are supposed to be ingratiated, and we're like, all right, well, you had one guy, now you got two. Maybe you should use a tandem backfield. Oh, why don't you use your tight end more? Like, I'm tired of asking the obvious questions when it comes to Kyle. A lot of it is that Kyle likes to win a certain way. And if he doesn't like what he has on offense, he doesn't even try. That's just what it is. It's been 9 years. We already know. It took him 3 years to even play Jordan Mason for us to figure out he had a fumbling issue. Right? He got away from Christian McCaffrey in the Super Bowl because he fumbled. I mean, this is on Kyle.
But I mean, if they're going to trade Jordan Mason, they're not going to get a second-round pick for him. I don't think, because you also got to pay him $5 million. So really, Commanders, I think it's a smart trade. Trade the Niners, call them up, say we'll give you a fourth for Jordan Mason, and see if Kyle's that blasé about him that he'll just let him go. Because I think he could be a guy who gives you 10 touchdowns, gives you 1,000 yards, even as a timeshare back.
I mean, I'll tell you this. It'd be hard for me to give up a second-round pick for Jordan Mason when you have Amarion Hampton sitting there from North Carolina.
That's why you could probably call him up and be like, hey, man, this is like a starting caliber running back with no tread on his tires, who hasn't even turned 26 yet, who we could get him for $5 million and a fourth. Not bad. Maybe might be worth it. Yeah. I think
I think it would be too. But we'll see how it plays out. I just don't think that he's invested in him.
No, I think you're probably right.